Thank you, Kellen, and good morning for some of you, good afternoon for some others. It is a pleasure for us to be here today. And before we introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about what this session is going to be today, I want to just, I want to acknowledge or say that Dr. Bueno and I, or Daisy and I, tend to be very informal in our presentations. So at times we are going to be sharing the slides. At times we're just going to have some discussions. And at times we are going to mess up because we're human beings and we are going to go through this process. But before we do this presentation, I want to recognize that the times that we are right now are times of a lot of difficulties and a lot of uncertainty. And yet, at the same time, the miracle of us being here together in this platform, in different states, in different time zones, it is just something quite amazing and something that I hope that we get to honor today. We hope that the presentation today is just not a presentation for you that will get to your head, to your brain, or to our head and to our brain, but also it gets to our heart. And therefore, I want to start with an acknowledgement of my ancestors, the Chorotegas and the Malecos, which are people in Costa Rica, the land that saw me born, saw me grow, and whose ancestors were almost exterminated, but even through pain and loss, continue thriving and teaching us about humility, harmony, balance, and cooperation. And today, the discussions that we are going to have are based at times on scientific knowledge, but a lot of times on community knowledge, and we want to honor that. I also want to honor the Athabascan people of Alaska, the land that welcomed me 15 years ago as an immigrant, and who taught me about their struggles, but also about their resiliency. And it's interesting that Costa Rican women learn about intergenerational and historical oppression far from her land and taught by the Alaska Native people in Alaska. And finally, I want to acknowledge the traditional and ancestor territory of the Kalapuyas and the Tlaxcanye, where Daisy and I are currently residing, in the space that is providing us this space today where we all can connect and can learn. And I hope and pray that today our presentation is a presentation that will not be a presentation that continue oppression of our communities and the community of this land, but actually enhance and recognize their determination and wisdom. And similarly, I want you to take a moment, for all of us to take a moment to honor where and who we're coming from, and honor the special moment that we have here. Some of you may be doing other activities as you're hearing these presentations. I have done it. I have just been cooking or taking care of my child when I'm hearing a presentation, and that's okay. Is that what you're doing? That's okay. Honor that. And what we want today is for us to honor this miraculous moment that we have together as a community. My name is Ruth Zúñiga, and I am a licensed psychologist. I am a professor at Pacific University in Oregon, and I have the honor of sharing this space with Dr. Bueno, Daisy Bueno, my friend, my colleague, I don't know how to call it, just my sister. And I would like for Daisy, for you to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Ruth, and welcome everybody. I appreciate you all coming in and sharing this space with us for the next hour or so. Just as a quick introduction about me, and just a little bit of my background too, I am originally from Chicago. My family is from Mexico, so I am the first generation in the United States. So I definitely take this time, and anytime I do any of this work, to think of them and to honor them as well. But I moved here to Oregon 2 years ago with the intention of working with Dr. Zúñiga and doing more community work and connecting with the Latinx community in particular, which has been a beautiful journey. I have just completed my residency last year, and I am newly licensed, and I am working in Portland for a program called Children's Program, and working with families and youth, which is what my training really focused on. So I'm happy to be doing this work again, and I'm happy to be here with all of you, sharing some of the wisdom that I've learned throughout my time here in Oregon with Ruth.
Thank you, Daisy. For the participants, I recommend that you can go onto the website and get the PowerPoint later on, because at times today we're going to be sharing the PowerPoint, but we're not going to be spending too much time on it. And instead, we're going to this opportunity to be experiential. And the idea that we have with this presentation is to talk a little bit about the concepts of self-care, which is really hard to say for me, because self-care, autocuidado in español, as we call it, is actually something that is sometimes hard for our communities to understand. So we're going to try to discuss a different format of self-care and ideas about self-care. I want to share also that many of the information shared here today are informations that we know based on research, but a lot of information is taught by the communities that we serve. I'm the director of a Latino psychology program, which focuses on teaching doctoral level and master level clinicians about working with the Latinx community in a cultural linguistic informed manner. And for many years, we have been very involved in the community. And through our involvement in the community, we have learned a lot about the different concepts of self-care, resiliency, and that's what we're going to try to bring today, those concepts. So we would like to start with some of you. If not, we have a chat, a poll that we can share with you. But let's see if we can have a couple of people sharing. What has been your experience? If you are a community helper, or if you are part of the community, what has been your experiences in regard to the current pandemics? And when I say pandemics, we're not talking about the COVID pandemic only. We're talking about the social injustice pandemics and the wildfires, especially in the West Coast. So as a community helper, what has been some of your experience regarding the pandemic? Or what feelings or experience have you noticed in the community? We would like, I'm gonna share the question here, so in case that people need to refer to the question, and Kellen may be able to share with everybody else. As a community helper, what has been some of your experiences regarding the pandemic? Or what are your feelings or experience that you have witnessed within the community? If we could have a couple of participants turn in their microphone or their camera or just the microphone and share about your experiences, we would love to hear that. I see people saying grief, loss, frustration, lack of trust. It's stressful on everything what is happening. Cindy say fear. Mireya says the stressful situation. Elisa, and sorry if I mispronounce your name, grief, loss. Stephanie Garcia, lack of helpful resources. What else? Keep on sharing what has been the experiences that we have noticed. And how does it feel for you? Impotencia, no poder hacer mucho, that sense of helplessness, gracias Rosario, hopelessness, frustration, economic impact, both negative emotions and a sense of unity with with some, says Jose, numbness, and thank you for everybody sharing transition to virtual academic platforms, lack of access to healthcare. So thank you again for everybody that keep on sharing. And I hope that everybody else can see what people are sharing in regards to this. And one of the things that we noticed during the pandemic, and it's just that it has highlighted the things that many of us, people of color, Indigenous, Black, brown people have experienced for generations and for centuries. And now the pandemics just have brought it to our attention with more clarity. And still, the pains and the emotions are devastating, and the experiences. And at the same time, one of the things that we keep on hearing in the community is a couple of things that has been fascinating, and also so, I should not have said fascinating, I should say so inspirational, and actually has been inspiration, hope. We have seen people, that aspect of unity, and the aspect of continue doing, continue focusing not only on ourselves but on others. Those and the pains are actually difficult to experience for the community, but a lot of times we forget that also all of those experiences, we as community helpers also experience similar experiences, or sometimes the experiences come from all sorts of ways, from all the people. I work with community health workers, and some promotores de salud will say to me, it's really hard to turn off my phone at 10 p.m. just because at that time is when I may receive phone calls from people is struggling, experiencing difficulties, and how can I say no? And so for community helpers, that is a more devastation that we are experiencing with the pandemics. And we keep on hearing, oh, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And we keep on hearing that, but what that means and how can we actually focus on that? I like to say, yes, we cannot empty from a pour from an empty cup, but I like to say also, we cannot get the cup full without going to an stream of water, without going to our community. And hopefully that is what we're going to be talking about today. So the first thing that we're going to talk, thanks for everybody for sharing, for your vulnerability, and for sharing these experiences as we see, as we are experiencing or seeing in the community. And we hope today, again, that we can give a little bit of un granito de arena. How do you say that, Daisy? And I constantly lost in translation. Grain of salt, but in realidad es un granito de arena. The big picture of the difficulties in regards to how to care for our communities, how to care for ourselves in regards to our emotional well-being and our emotional health. And so, Daisy, your turn. You can tell me if you want to share the screen, start sharing the screen, and when to stop.
Yeah. Let's share it. And we're going to start really by just providing a little bit of background, right? I know that Dr. Ruth provided us with a beautiful overview. And I do want to acknowledge, as I was, reading through everybody's responses to just the heaviness that is, the conversation and the vulnerability, because we're reliving these experiences, right? A lot of the times we're really good at pushing it back and just moving forward, and we go through our day. But this is a moment that we've all chosen to come and share and sit with these feelings of, the hopelessness, the grief, the discrimination, and everything that we have maybe experienced ourselves, or that we've seen loved ones or others in our community experience too. So, of course, check in, and we'll definitely provide some support a little bit later to, help our bodies really move through that process. But like I said, just to provide a little bit of background in terms of what the experiences have been in terms of what, you know, we've read, what we've heard the community say, is that, you know, community members who serve the BIPOC communities, they've taken on this huge responsibility. And oftentimes, a lot of the people that chose to work with these communities are people that identify as BIPOC themselves, right? So this is done with great intention, with big heart. But what we know is that it's not just a job. Oftentimes this is a lot more personal, which means that the emotional stress is a lot higher. Just witnessing these injustices and inequities that we experience ourselves, but we see our community continuously experiencing. And I know that this is something that is, you know, just been so relevant with all of the pandemics. Even last week, what has happened to our Asian community, and it's exhausting, right? We work towards equity, we work towards supporting our communities, but then these big things happen that just bring the sense of hopelessness and questioning. So stress levels are high, our bodies and our minds are feeling it. And they impact us in many ways, sometimes in ways that we don't even notice. You know, we may be feeling it in our bodies, we may have headaches, or sometimes we're just feeling numb, right? And we don't even feel it until later on it hits us that there's something off. Go to the next slide.
Yes, I did. And as I
Thank you. So talking a little bit more about what toxic stress, the vicarious traumas, and what are these experiences that people have gone through, and especially our healthcare workers and our community workers, you know, they've really experienced this trauma throughout the pandemic. There has been a lot of loss of control, of course, loss of what our lives used to be. So there's a lot of grief, even just in that sense, right? That our routines, las rutinas, they're completely off. They're very different, and we're very adaptable. So it's, you know, I've heard the community say, but now I'm used to working from home, and now I like wearing my, you know, my pajamas in the bottom, and I feel comfortable, and that's great. We're very adaptable, but you know, the routines keep changing. Right now, schools are starting again, and now we're starting to go back to work again. So you know, we're reliving this, you know, trauma that life is just different, and it's not what it used to be, and we're trying our best to adapt. But I know for me, when I watch TV sometimes and I see shows and novelas and people are too close to each other, I feel that sense of almost anxiety of like, oh, they're too close. It's COVID. But that just shows that even though I've adapted to our new life, it's still always in my head, right? And I think that is real for a lot of people, that maybe we don't have the same excitement going to different places out in the world because it's a lot of stress unconsciously of wearing our masks, of seeing people with masks, and a lot of things to keep in mind. The cognitive load is huge. So with all of that, and with our jobs, you know, on top of that, it can feel impossible to take a break, right? We see that there's a lot of need. We're experiencing a lot personally. We're seeing our communities experiencing a lot. So that's where, you know, the compassion fatigue comes in. You're tired. You're seeing it often. You begin to feel this numbness, and maybe it's to protect ourselves from the pain that we're constantly observing. Or maybe it's that we've just seen it so much that we've acknowledged that maybe this is the way life is, right? And then with that, sometimes comes that bit of guilt, right? When we sit in this moment and we think about it, and we may feel guilty for almost feeling numb to that, which are all, of course, natural feelings that we experience when we go through this collective trauma together. I'll go to the next slide. And just to talk about what can be done. And with the what can be done, we hear a lot about self-care, like Dr. Ruth talked earlier. But, you know, self-care in many ways has been very colonized. I think we may think of it in our communities as some very unattainable, or maybe very expensive, or we don't have enough time for that. So it's something that's almost been transformed into something, you know, bigger than what it is. So Instead, we want to really ground us and focus on how do we continue to build our strengths that we have already, our resiliency that we have, and really provide support to our communities. Because, like I said, self-care has something that it's big, it's becoming very capitalistic, but we want to bring it back down a little bit to how does this, meet our needs.
Sorry, Daisy, I didn't mean to cut you there. I just accidentally stopped sharing because I was trying to do something else here to share the poem, but let me go back there.
Yeah. Let's do the poem.
Can you see that?
Yes, now I see it. Yes. So we wanted to just take a little moment and think about what words or images or what comes to mind when you hear the word resiliency. And I believe we have a little bit. Do we have a link?
Yeah, we do. I just let me share it here. That's what is needed to have several screens will be helpful here. So I'm sharing it here with Kellen to see if you can share it to everybody else. So there is a poll there that says, what words comes to mind when we think about resiliency? What that means to you?
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
and people can click on that word, and then English, Spanish is okay.
Mm-hmm. Just type in the word.
Type a word.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just go there, type a word. What resilience means to you? And I'm gonna start sharing the screen so people can see the responses. This is what many of us, or you as a community are talking about. Resiliency is survival, recovery, adaptable, strength, recover, ability to come back. And so you can see that maybe our main three things are really related in regards to fuerza, which is strength, bouncing back, is strong, which relates to strength. But it's an interesting thing to see here something in regards to recover. And I will share that screen again later on. So I love whoever says retoñar. What a wonderful word to say in regards to resiliency there. These aspects of retoñar, which is so much ingrained within our culture. And so we will share more about that. So thanks for sharing. And so some people also put in the chat, recover, nacer de las cenizas, like almost like the phoenix. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Let me go back to here and I see all yours.
Okay. And of course, just knowing me, I can ramble, I can go on and on. So I want to just provide a quick overview on what resiliency is in general, because, and I'll be quick because I really want Dr. Ruth to come in and really talk about what resiliency means to the community, because there are differences, right? When we talk about resiliency, generally speaking, we talk about this process of adapting to trauma, to adversities, or big stressors. And it means that we just bounce back from these difficult experiences pretty quickly. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, a person has never experienced anything difficult or distressing and that it's all personality based, but it's quite the opposite, right? So it means that a person has experienced a lot of distress, but they have always learned, how to thrive in it and remain optimistic and not just survive what has happened. So of course, we can learn to, regulate our emotions and maintain positive view of oneself and really focus on the strengths. But I really wanted to just pause and really acknowledge the importance of knowing when to stop and rest and replenish, because I know that, when we're going through a lot and when we're helpers of the community and healers in many ways, we often forget this piece, and we forget to take care of our basic needs. I know that I've had days where, I forget to go to the bathroom until the end of the day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go, and I run. But, it's these basic things like sleeping an appropriate amount of time, which that's an easy way to, add more time to your day. So that's often cut short. Eating at appropriate times, or eating healthy meals, or drinking enough water, right? And just resting and taking care of ourselves is a way that, of course, is self-care, that I don't think is talked about and acknowledged, but that's something that, as healers and a lot of us that identify as BIPOC and feel the sense of responsibility often forget about. And this is a way that we can replenish and continue, seguir adelante and continue resisting all these systems that are continuously oppressing our communities. So I really wanted to take a moment to highlight that piece. But with that, I do want to pass it on to Dr. Ruth so that she can talk a little bit more about what resiliency means for our community.
Thank you, Daisy. I think the message, the concept of resiliency, especially now during the pandemic, we hear it over and over again. But if you, like for us that work with the Latinx community, I'm first generation high school, middle school, first generation immigrant. And I always actually wonder, does my community, the people that I grew, understand this concept? And so in Spanish, resiliency will say resiliencia. And that's actually a word that is very hard to say. And what does it mean for our communities? And so at times, even the words that are very popular and the words or the ideas and concepts that we're trying to reclaim at the same time can be of oppression, or can just the way that we put them together or the way that we talk about it can put people in the margins or marginalize people. And so the concept of resiliency, what does it mean for us? I want to share some very quick research about what we have learned from our community. I'm going to be transparent. We do very little research compared to this. We do mostly community work, but in a recent study, we did resiliency, a resiliency study for Latina women engaging in higher education, and we learned about the concepts of family and the concepts of community. We also did a research on resiliency of Latinx immigrants adapting into the United States, and we learned similar concepts that what the research says in regards to adaptability and flexibility and the connection with community and connection to having this sense of hope no matter what. But I want to share the most recent one, which was our qualitative research when we were trying to assess and figure out what has been the experience for Latinx individuals during the last 4 years since 2016, and what helped them move and what was resilience for them. And it's really hard to see for your screen, but I recommend all of these resources will be available for you so you can check and see later on. But one of the things that we learn is that resiliency for us, for many of us, is rooted in community. And this says here, like the discrimination and the bad, the puertas cerradas, separación, stress, all the difficulties is like this big storm. And we can also say, it seems like for many of us, the COVID-19, the pandemics is just this big storm. And how a big resiliency of the individuals is just like a big tree. where are planted, that tree, what is going to make that tree stand and be strong to all this storm is going to be its roots. And the roots, the community talk about the sense of community, the sense of belonging to a group, also faith in the form of religion or spirituality, sometimes spiritual practices, sometimes just beliefs. And the other concept, very important, is cultural pride, orgullo latino, es lo que nos dijeron nuestras participantes. And the interesting thing is that this cultural pride, we did some studies in Alaska with Alaska Native communities when I was there, and we also found within the community this sense of collective self-esteem. And the research tells us that the more connected an individual is with their cultural roots, the stronger their resiliency or their well-being is. And also for our community, the concepts of resiliency being strengthened by a desire of a need to move forward, but salir adelante. And salir adelante is not just simple as move forward, it's going ahead, rising up, flourishing. Maybe somebody was saying regerminar, just that aspect of continue. And why? Not only to maintain well-being and hope, but that hope just being for these branches to continue growing, that the community call it the hope for our children, for our future, for our people. And we can say many of these concepts relate to what we know in regards to resiliency, but it enhances also more this aspect of community, of cultural pride, and also the aspect of doing what we do for the future and the future generations, and for this aspect of legacy and intergenerational strength. We as communities, BIPOC communities, constantly talk about intergenerational trauma and intergenerational historical trauma, but what the community is also telling us is we have to talk also about intergenerational wisdom and intergenerational healing. And based on this, I start looking at what the research says, what are all the books about resiliency said, what my community says, and I came up with this. I want to be transparent. This is an idea that I'm testing, that I'm looking at, and that has been informed again by the community. And it is this idea of looking at resiliency based on what the community says, the way that we can build resiliency in every day, looking at from these liberational practices that are community focused. And today, just because of time, this is what we're going to be focusing today. We're going to focus on the first step of resiliency building, what we will call Consciencia and praxis. It's not praxis, there's a typo right there. Consciencia and praxis. What that means self-reflection and self-care. We will be talking about that. These other concepts are things that we have seen in our communities, that we are working with our communities. Resistencia, which is more the concepts of relaxation and restoration. Orientación social, which is social justice, but in the aspect of community engagement and community connection, voluntarism, voluntary work. And liberación, which is more the aspect of atención, mindfulness, acción, and acceptance, but from a community perspective. So again, we are going to focus on this aspect of resiliency with BIPOC communities from this aspect of conciencia and praxis. Y esto es basado, this is based on liberation psychology, and also I like to say basado en my comunidad, because many of these things is just things that we learned from our ancestors, from our grandparents. Nothing of this is our ideas. It's actually what our culture have taught us. So when we think about conciencia and practice, the first step for conciencia is self-reflection, reflexión. It's understand, a lot of times people say, where are you coming from? And we like to actually, there is some maybe more important question is, who are we coming from? And that aspect of, or I'm going to speak in regards to this from my culture, which is the Latinx culture, this orgullo Latino. Do I know who were my ancestors, where I coming from, what were their values, and how that have shaped my life? Do I practice or in regards to my cultural values? It's understand who and what is my energy force. It's in relationship to por los niños, as the research was saying, like meaning what is my driving force? Also, self-reflection is understanding my own strengths, my weakness, my emotions, my values, my inclinations, motivations, and my culture. Another important thing in regards to self-reflection is understand if the current circumstances and situations or the way that I'm serving the community is becoming traumatic to me, is becoming too much to handle. Do I taking work with me at wherever I go? Do I taking the pain with me wherever I go without taking also the strength and the healing from my community? Also, self-reflection is understanding historical and internalized oppression and reclaim spaces for healing. And I just want to touch on all these concepts because we could have an entire couple of days of just getting in depth into engaging in self-reflection practices and understanding how this current situation is affecting me, or how it's also potentially giving me a life, and why I'm doing this. And at the end, Consciencia or self-reflection is looking for opportunities for self-discovery. And we know different ways how we can engage in self-reflection, talking with others. People will say, in our communities, a lot of times is praying and asking for guidance. In psychology, we like to call people, find about who you are by engaging in journaling and writing about exercises, but that may not be appropriate for everybody. I also think about that in this case is identifying who I am and who am as a person of color is experiencing life right now. And these are some questions that we could ask ourselves to self-reflect, because the first step for resiliency will be that consciencia, that awareness and self-reflection. And these are some questions. And again, PowerPoint is going to be ready for you. It's ready so you can check it on, and hopefully you can engage in some of these questions on your own. Like, what is my culture? What is my cultural pride? What gives me energy? What is life giving to me? What are my strengths and my talents? And during difficult times, it is a lot of times we forget our strengths, our talents. And also when we think about BIPOC communities, maybe we have to change the I and the me to our and we. And one of the things that I ask the community when we do community engagement, one of the activities, one of the dynamics that we do is always let's talk about one of the things that you are good at. Because through generations, at times we have forget our strengths and our good practices and the good things. So the first activity is self-reflection. The second one is self-care. And this is the one that I just going to share very quickly. And this is what we share to our community members about how every day can you reclaim self-care and self-care practices. And the way of self-care is thinking about how can we rejuvenate and replenish every day. And these are some of the things that we like to tell to people. Let's look at the staff in our community that we know are good, or the things that our ancestors have taught us. Many of us are familiar with this concept, un día a la vez, a day at a time. And so the first step for self-care, something that we can do every day to engage in self-care, is living one day at a time. But what that means, besides la canción de Los Tigres del Norte, and for those that are Latinx or will know what I mean, besides the song of this Mexican band, Living One Day at a Time, is remembering that this situation, this difficult moment is going to pass. And therefore, focusing on the present moment is one vital and important thing to do. It's about using positive affirmations and statements of faith that remind us our strengths and what we have. It's about maintaining positive attitude, but at the same time validating our emotions. And those emotions may be that one day it's okay to be strong, and other days it's okay to not feel strong, and to be able to truly live that moment, and moment by moment, knowing that this situation will pass. That's number one. Number two is something that we can do every day, and the research demonstrates us that having 2 cycles of this kind of breath, it is very important for anxiety, for dealing with blood pressure, also helping with stress, helping with depression. And the idea is that 2 times a day, and it takes only 2 minutes, that 2 times a day, and if we do it once a day, that's okay. We take 2 of these cycles of breath, and I will invite you to do it with me. Everybody that is, whatever you're doing, just take a pause, and you just empty the lungs with your mouth. You breathe in quietly through your nose, counting for 4 seconds. You hold your breath for 7 seconds in your stomach, and you exhale through your mouth, very gentle and at the same time lengthy. And the number of seconds is not important. The most important is that you breathe in deeply through your nose, take as much oxygen to your stomach, hold for double the time that it took you that in-breath, hold that breath in your stomach, and then very slowly breathe out through your mouth, very slowly. And I will do it this time without counting, but we will do it 2 times. So we breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Gently and slowly. And we do it again. Breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Gently and slowly. So now, hopefully 2 times right now, hopefully you engage in this self-practice, and it takes just a matter of couple of minutes to do it, and it's just something to remember. So number 1, living one day at a time. 2 cycles of breath. Number 3, that we like to say, is counting 3 blessings every day. One of the most valuable ways to deal with stress, or one of the buffers, or one of the ways to actually deal, scientific proven, shows that gratitude is one of the most important things that we can do to buffer our emotional health or to combat stress. And so sharing 3 times 3 blessings, count your blessings, 3 your talents, your gifts, write it, share it, meditate, start your day with counting 3 blessings, or at the end of the day, counting 3 blessings. So I will actually like to recommend and encourage everybody that can just use the chat and just share 1 blessing with everybody else. 1 blessing, something that you're grateful for, something that you want to be part of it. For example, I am very grateful for my daughter. Voy a poner hija porque with my daughter, which she's showing me how just resiliency is. I am grateful for having this moment with you, grateful for being together. So keep on just sharing those grateful moments. Number 4, gratitude. Again, there are different ways to go about gratitude. Number 4, it is, I'm gonna share this screen, and it is about considering our health and our balance as a 4-legged stool. Every day, if we think about our life being a 4-legged stool or 4-leg table, that if we start actually engaging in these 4 practices every day, it will be something important with our emotional health. One thing is every day helping or finding ways of an element of joy or pleasure. And if it's cultural pleasure every day, that is even fantastic. So maybe it is every day I'm going to make sure that one of my meals, one of the foods that I eat, I enjoy it. Maybe every day is that I hold my daughter's hand with love and just observe her and observe her eyes and feel her joy. So finding a moment of joy is one leg. The second leg is connecting with other people, other beings, other individuals. It can be pets, friends, family, nature, community. Something that helps us deal with the sense of isolation. And there are different ways now that we can connect, but make it in a way that is meaningful. Leg number 3 is to feel focusing in our physical health as our grandparents taught us. The importance of eating healthy, drinking enough water, sleeping enough, and moving. Making sure that physical activity is part of it. Sometimes maybe it's dancing. And maybe if I dance, I'm doing a physical activity, plus I'm doing the cultural joy because I enjoy dancing. And the 4th thing is every day trying to find a reachable goal. Depends on my condition. Something that says, I need to continue moving forward. And sometimes that reachable goal is I'm going to take a shower. Some other times I'm going to take a shower for today. Another times that reachable goal is I'm going to do that thing that I have been waiting for a long time not to do. And the 5th thing is using our 5 senses to connect with the present moment. So remember, un día a la vez, one day at a time, 2 cycles of breath, 3 blessings, 4 legs of balance, and number 5 is connecting with our senses. And this is what we are going to do now, to ask you if you can actually allow yourself to connect these senses with your senses and with this moment. And I will invite you for this activity to find a comfortable place, if either laying down or sitting in a chair, and trying to I'm gonna guide you through an activity, and I will invite you to just be here in this moment and follow some of these activities or some of the instructions that I will lead you through. So let's take a deep breath. Find a comfortable position where your back hopefully is rested, your legs are rested. And as you hear the bells, if you feel comfortable, lower your gaze. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. Notice in this moment, as you're closing your eyes or lowering your gaze, notice your feet. Where are they planted in this moment? Notice your legs and your back, your hands. Where are they in this moment? Notice the sensations of your fingers. Where are they in this moment? And gently, slowly, bring your attention to your breathing. Notice how each in-breath, maybe actually you feel in your nose the air being cool, a little bit cool, and the out breath, the air feels a little bit warmer. Without changing anything, just notice your in breath and your out breath and what happens in your body every time that you breathe in and you breathe out. Without changing anything, notice what happens in your chest and your shoulders every time that you breathe in and every time that you breathe out. Notice what happens in your chest, your shoulders, your stomach with your in breath and your out breath. Now I invite you, with the power of the mind, I invite you to bring your mind to a place that maybe is a place of restoration, a place of relaxation, or a place of comfort to you. Imagine that you are going to this place or that you are in this place. For some people, maybe it's being close to the ocean. For some people, maybe it's by a creek. For some, maybe a church or a room. But imagine that you are walking to a place that gives you comfort, that gives you a sense of peace or restoration. Imagine yourself walking to this place and look around at this place. What do you see? What colors? What textures? Do you see light? What do you notice with your eyes? Now slowly pay attention with your ears. What do you hear in this place? Do you hear any specific noise or sounds? Or maybe you just hear silence. And imagine that you can feel in your skin, in your face, being in this place. What does it feel in your face? Maybe breeze, maybe air, maybe light or heat. What temperatures do you feel being in this place? And imagine that you can also smell the unique smells, the unique aromas of this place. What it smells like? Can you smell the sense of comfort, the sense of restoration, maybe potentially a sense of peace? And as you smile, smelling, can you also taste what it tastes like to be in this place? And using your 5 senses, explore around this place and imagine that you can breathe in restoration, comfort, peace, relaxation as you breathe in. Imagine that you breathe in peace, relaxation, and resting. And explore around and slowly start saying goodbye to this place, taking with you peace, comfort, and also a sense of resting or restoring. Start walking out, saying goodbye to this place, knowing that it will be available for you when you may need it. Take a deep inhalation, a deep exhalation, and open your eyes if you had your eyes closed, and then you stretch. One thing that we do when we do this activity that we added to our community, that because of time we could not do it today, is that we invite the community to bring community members or to bring people that they can trust, people that are there to help in this aspect of restoration. So those are the 5 skills that we wanted to share, something that we all can do every day. Number 1, un día a la vez. 2, 2 cycles of bread. 3, count 3 blessings every day. 4, the 4 legs stools. And 5, something that helps you connect. Today we do this activity, this relaxation activity, but there are other ways that we can help us connect with our 5 senses. I know, and I apologize for not having time to engage in questions or discussion, but I know that Kellen is writing there the survey. Here is my email address if people want to reach out to us. And also Daisy may be able to write there. And I appreciate for everybody that was here with us today to spend this morning with us. And we wish you that you are able to find moments of refuge throughout these difficult times. Daisy, something else for you?
And also, of course, thank you for sharing the space with us, and thank you for the work that you do for our community. Definitely am full of gratitude, and I loved reading just all of the things that everyone is grateful for, because I think it really just sets such a beautiful intention, and just it's so grounding just to see that our needs revolve around our health, our family, y ser unidos. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I think Kellen will just come back. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much to our presenters for this fantastic session. I personally feel so much more at peace and just inspired, and I can't wait to look at the presentation later. Everyone, if you could please fill out the survey for the session. I put the link in the chat box if you just scroll up a little. And Drs. Zúñiga and Bueno have both put their email addresses in the chat box to contact them with any questions later. So thank you both so much. Take care.